भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. Let us continue taking our medicine for our heart, for our soul. Let us take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, who is our best friend and greatest wealth. Adeka bandhu matsangi madguru man mahadhana man nishtaraka mad bhagya madananda namostate. So Srimad Bhagavatam is our shelter. I can start reading and then you can continue later.
Okay.
Vidura asked how much of Brahma's life had passed, and Maitreya replied that his life was divided into two halves, known as parardhas. The first half had already passed, and the second half had just commenced. The first day of Brahma's life was known as the Brahma Kalpa. It was also known as the Shweta Varaha Kalpa, because the white incarnation of Lord Varahadev appeared during that day. The Vedas also appeared at that time. On the second day of Brahma's life, a lotus sprouted from the navel of Sankarshan as he lay in the Garbhodaka ocean. For that reason, it is known as the Padmakalpa or the lotus millennium. There is some controversy on this point, as some sages say that the last day of the first half of Brahma's life is the Padmakalpa. Okay. The first day of the second half of Brahma's life is also known as the Varaha Kalpa, because Lord appeared again as his hog incarnation. Although his bodily hue was red, not white, some sages also refer to this as Padmakalpa. Again Brahma appeared on the lotus coming from the lotus navel, Lord's navel. Okay. Yeah, so let's pause there. There are different in different cycles, the avatars appear slightly different. The pastimes are slightly different. The same Matsyakurma, Varaha, Narasimha, same incarnations, but then the stories are like the color of the boar incarnation. In some is white, and some it's red. So there are different cycles of the yugas where different incarnations appear slightly with slightly different story, because again these are individuals, right? The demons are individuals as well, so there is like slightly different leela or slightly different detail, and also the Lord takes different colors, not always the same color. So sometimes we hear in some Purana, oh, this happened, but then we see in Bhagavatam is not the same, because that's a different kalpa, that's a different cycle. So there's no confusion. It's not the contradiction. It's just a different kalpa. It's a different. Because it's happening often, right? I mean, often in Brahma's time. For us, it's like, oh, eternity. But for Brahma, it's okay. One day, everything wind up. When he goes to sleep, the universe goes to sleep. It is hardly surprising that there's controversy, replied Vidura. I'm astonished that anyone can understand anything of such vast scales of time. Even one day of Brahma is difficult to understand. What to speak of his entire life? Exactly. Maitreya laughed. Now consider the greatness of Mahavishnu, who is unchanging, unlimited, and the cause of all material causes. Brahma's entire life is less than a second for him. Time exists in the spiritual world? Vidura exclaimed. Certainly. Does it control the residents there also? No. Eternal time controls the cosmos in small and large divisions, from the atom up to Brahma's planet Satyaloka. However, it can only control those who identify with the material body. Although it exists in the spiritual world, it has no power over the Lord or his devotees who reside there. Indeed, Krishna controls time. Maitreya made an expansive gesture with his outstretched arms. Just try to understand Krishna's greatness, Vidura. This material universe has a diameter of 4 billion miles. It is a combination of 8 material elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These further transform into 16 phenomena: the 10 senses, the mind, and the 5 sense objects. The universe is covered by 7 layers of elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and so on. The first layer, earth, is 10 times wider than the diameter of the universe itself. Each subsequent layer is 10 times wider than the preceding one. The whole universe, with all its coverings, is thus countless trillions of miles across. This is the smallest of them all. Yet this universe and all the innumerable others are like a cluster of atoms in comparison to Mahavishnu's body, from whose pores they emanate. Can you now appreciate the greatness of Mahavishnu, who is the indestructible Brahman, the cause of all causes? Yet he is merely one plenary part of Krishna, who eternally resides in the spiritual world, and whom Brahma glorifies as the original personality of Godhead. Hearing Maitreya expound Krishna's glories, Vidura's heart was suffused with joy. Tears of happiness welled in his eyes, and the hairs on his body stood up. So that ends our 11th chapter. Now we're beginning the 12th chapter. Any questions or comments so far? Everything is clear. You will remember exactly how much is Brahma's lifetime.
Yes.
Okay. Mataji Rasastali, would you like to continue reading the 12th chapter?
Yes. Creation, chapter 12, creation of the Kumaras and others. Giving an account of the secondary creation, Maitreya describes how Brahma created the 5 preconditions of material bondage and the 4 principles of liberation. Maitreya also describes the appearance of the 4 Kumaras and the 11 Rudras and Rudranis. He also describes the birth of Brahma's sage sons, headed by Narada. Maitreya recounts Brahma's indiscretion with his daughter Vak and how Brahma created the Vedas and alphabets from the different parts of his body. Finally, we hear of the parents of Swayambhu, Bhuva, Manu, and his wife Satyarupa. The mid-morning sun shone through the branches of the trees where Vidura and Maitreya sat, its bright rays sparkling on the nearby pond. A turtle lay on the nearby rock, its limbs outstretched to enjoy the sun. Spotted deer lowered their antlers as they drank from the far side of the pond. Monkeys swung chattering in the overhead trees, and bird song filled the morning air. Vidura sat for several minutes, taking in the varied beauty of Krishna's creation. How was it that foolish people were unable to appreciate the Lord's greatness and glory? With just a single fragment of himself, Krishna pervades and supports his entire creation. As Vidura mused, Maitreya silently entered the water, dipped his head under 3 times, and then muttered sacred mantras. Coming out of his reverie, Vidura slowly raised himself with the help of his staff and carefully made his way to the water where he joined his friend. After they were refreshed, they returned to the bank, where Vidura asked Maitreya to tell him more about the creation. Maitreya said, O learned Vidura, thus far I have described to you the glories of the Lord's powerful form of time. Now hear from me how Brahma, the reservoir of all Vedic knowledge, creates. Brahma
Mm.
sat on his lotus seat, his eyes closed as he contemplated how to construct the universe. Before he could generate the many species of life, the four-headed god needed to create the conditions under which the living entities must exist in the material world. Unless they forgot their real spiritual identities, it would be impossible for them to live a materialistic life. Brahma therefore decided to first produce tamas, the energy of forgetfulness. Knowing that the fallen souls would also need to identify themselves with their material bodies, he produced moha, the bodily conception of life. To further facilitate the illicit desires, Brahma generated Mahamoha, the sense of false ownership of material objects.
I
Considering
wish
what
I
would
could
happen,
say, sorry, it's just pasta. I wish
yeah,
I could say die, but I feel like, oh no.
I know.
Okay, Brahma's creating us. Oh no. Oh no,
Yeah,
moha, the bodily conception of life. Okay.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
maha moha, the sense of false ownership of material object.
yeah,
Oh no,
yeah.
we're completely
Me and
doomed.
mine, me and mine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm. Considering what would happen when they failed to procure their desired objects, he realized he needed to create tamisra or anger. Thinking
Great.
more deeply, Brahma considered that one last thing was required. The material body was temporary, and therefore the living being, while identifying with it, would think that its very existence would end along with the body. He would thus experience a morbid fear of death. Brahma therefore created Andhatamisara, the energy which generates that fear. After creating these 5 dark forces, Brahma felt remorse. How merciless he was to create the ropes of illusion, which would cruelly bind the fallen souls. Yet, what choice did he have? Souls entered the creation because they wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna. Brahma's job was to facilitate the foolish desire, but he had to also arrange for those souls who wanted to rectify themselves. Again, he sat on his lotus seat and meditated upon the Lord. With a purified mind, he continued to create. After generating the 5 principles of ignorance, he decided to manifest the 4 principles of knowledge. These are Sankhya, the specific analysis of material conditions, Yoga, the path of mystic meditation, vairagya, detachment from material enjoyment, the tapas, voluntary austerities which lead to spiritual perfection. With this in mind, Brahma manifested the four great sages named Sanaka, Sanadana, Sanatana, and Sana, entrusting them each with one of the four principles of knowledge. All four sages were spiritually advanced because of their determination to practice strict celibacy. Brahma, anxious to populate the universe, gravely addressed his sons. My dear boys, I desire that you generate progeny. The brothers bowed respectfully and expected permission to consider the instruction. Confident they would obey, Brahma happily obliged. The four brothers moved away and conferred together. One said, if we become entangled in false family relationships, our spiritual advancement may be hampered. How can we refuse the order of our Father? Said another. Shall we not become implicated in sin? Furthermore, our bodies will soon grow to adulthood when sex desire will naturally awaken. O wise ones, said a third, it is said that anyone seriously engaged in the Lord's devotional service need not care for any other obligation. This is true, said the fourth. There is no sin in refusing our Father's request, but our own mystic powers, we must immediately curb the maturation of our body and make known our determination to remain celibate. Although celestials naturally grew to adulthood soon after birth, by their yogic power, the bodies of the four brothers did not progress beyond that of 5-year-old children. With folded hands, the four boy sages went before their father again and respectfully addressed him. Father, it is our desire to remain unmarried and fully dedicate ourselves to the Lord's service. What? Exclaimed Brahma, scowling. Do you know what a heavy responsibility I have entrusted with to create and populate this universe? As my sons, it is your duty to assist me. The boys stood with heads, but did not waver in their determination. Brahma clenched his
Pause, pause,
fists.
pause, pause.
Yeah,
See, they were respectful. They paid their obeisances, but then their determination did not get disturbed. Okay, is Taruni there? We're discussing. Okay, she's not here. So the other day we were actually discussing about this point that sometimes we need to be respectful but firm about our own needs and our own progress in life, and we don't compromise our progress for anything. But there are ways to differ, and there are ways to take a stand. We can do it in Sattvagun, we can do it in Rajagun, and we can do it in Tamagun. And Tamagun is like to see one thing as everything. And then Rajagun is to do it with that kind of passion and expectation that leads to misery. But in Sattvagun, we just do it out. Okay, I really respect you, my dear father. Very nice. Yes, yes, I understand your responsibility. But this is my determination. It's very, we can learn how to do that in a Sattvic manner. I like that. Okay, I'll read a little bit and then you can read again.
okay.
Brahma clenched his fists and breathed deeply, struggling to contain his rage. His golden complexion reddened, and suddenly from between his brows a child of mixed blue and red burst forth. The child repeatedly cried out, O controller and guru of the universe, tell me my name and where I should live. Brahma tried to pacify the boy. He gently said, Please do not cry. I shall certainly do as you ask. O first amongst the gods, you shall be known as Rudra, he cries loudly. Brahma reflected on where Rudra should reside. He knew that the child was a product of his anger, which would be the most formidable enemy of living beings born into this creation. It would first appear in the heart and then affect senses and life air. An angry person's eyes would become red. He would clench his fists, kick his legs, and breathe rapidly. Brahma said, "My dear boy, you shall live in the hearts of all living beings and in their senses and life air." "Is that all?" demanded the audacious boy. "Must I be constrained in others' bodies?" Brahma was taken aback. He thought quickly. For destruction, nature would need to exhibit a merciless aspect. Violent winds would blow with crushing thunder. The seas would become ferocious. Sometimes the sun would blaze fiercely and fires would rage over the earth's surface. At other times, the moon would create extreme cold. For all these phenomena, Rudra would be most helpful. Looking down at the boy, he said, "My dear child, you may also reside in the sky, the air, fire, water, earth, the sun, and the moon." The boy cast a sullen glance at the four young sages who stood to the side placidly watching him. "How will I associate with ascetics?" Brahma briefly considered the question. Not all sages would be devoted to Krishna. Some would perform severe austerities for material power. They would need to be checked before they became too powerful. Rudra would be most helpful in making them fall prey to pride and anger. Thinking like this, the god replied, "You may also live where there is austerity." Wow. Rudra, whose body had quickly become tall and powerful, assumed a more relaxed countenance. He was happy at these residences. Brahma also seemed pleased with the turn of events. Smiling, he said, "Since you have 11 abodes, I shall give you 11 names to suit. These shall be Manu, Manu, Mahinasha, Mahan, Shiva, Ritadvaja, Ugrareta, Bhava, Kala, Vamadeva, and Ritavrata." With a mere wave of Brahma's hand, Rudra's powerful body expanded into 11 replicas of himself. Each looked restlessly at the other, unsure what to do next. Brahma smiled within himself. This child and his expansions were more energetic. They needed to be married. Then they could help populate the universe. Brahma said, "I shall also bestow on each of you a wife. These will collectively be called Rudranis." Please continue.
Yes. If they all have the same name, it will cause confusion, said one of the Rudras. Brahma nodded and after creating the 11 Rudranis, gave each girl her own name. Here is Dhi, Thriti, Rasala, Uma, Niyut, Sarpi, Ila, Ambika, Iravati, Swadha, and Diksha. He said as he walked down the line, inspecting each couple. As he did so, he placed the maiden's hand in that of her new husband. "My dear boys," said Brahma happily, "you may now go with your wives and take up residence in the 11 places I have designated for you. You shall be among the principal gods, and as such, I request that you assume responsibility for increasing the population on a large scale." Each Rudra stepped forward in turn, bowed deferentially to Brahma, and then vanished along with his wife. To Brahma's delight, he soon saw many children of a mixed blue and red complexion playing in the heavens. Their numbers increased rapidly year after year. Not only did they have the same bodily complexion as their fathers, but they were each as strong and furious in their natures.
Wow.
Each of these boys grew swiftly to adulthood and, like their fathers, accepted wives and procreated. Within a short time, the sons and grandsons generated from the 11 Rudras were unlimited in number. At first, Brahma was delighted to see the population increasing. However, soon he heard a tumultuous noise in the heavens. Descending on his swan carrier, he saw hordes remembering his Rudra sons running riot, shouting defiantly and trying to devour everything in sight with the fierce flames emanating from their eyes. Seeing this, Brahma became frightened. Just at that moment, one of them spotted Brahma. Flames of anger darted from his eyes, and he called to his companions, "Look, there is Brahma. Let us devour him." "Flee, flee!" Brahma ordered his swan carrier, who stretched his wings and flew as high and far as he could. Brahma prayed fervently to Vishnu for protection. His heart beat fast, and sweat streamed from his four faces. Brahma's pursuers gave chase for some while, but unable to gain ground, they lost interest and turned their attention to easier targets. When he was clear of danger, Brahma ordered his carrier to take him to Mount Kailash, where the original Rudra lived with his wife. Seeing his father's swan carrier approaching, Rudra respectfully rose to greet him. He was startled to see Brahma looking perturbed and out of breath. Taking his father's outstretched hand, he helped him alight and offered him a seat. His wife approached and touched his father-in-law's feet, seeking his blessings. When they were seated, Rudra said, "Father, if you feel it appropriate, pray, tell me what has so disturbed you." Tactfully, Brahma related all that had happened. "O best of the gods," he concluded, "there is no need for you to generate living entities of this nature. They have begun they have begun to devastate everything on all sides with a fierce fire shooting from their eyes, and they have even attacked me." Rudra drew his breath, his face darkened with displeasure. Rising, he towered above his father. "You have created my nature, which is suited to destruction, and you have ordered me to produce children. So how can now find fault with me?"
Okay, we can stop there today, actually. So Rudra is like, what? You told me to procreate. What is wrong with what I'm doing? Right?
So anger is there now.
Yeah. Maharudra. Maharudra. He's very powerful because Brahma is created from Brahma's temper. So Brahma is the sun. So Krishna, Mahadev, Lord Shiva is the grandson of Brahma. But
Okay.
see, one thing I want to say to end this Bhagavatam study. Sometimes in India we have so many demigods, right? And as when we come to devotional service, we misunderstand their position and we say, oh, they're demigods, demigods. But actually, this is family. Brahma is a son of Krishna, and Shiva is the grandson of Krishna. Durga Devi is sister of Krishna. So we need to be careful when we judge demigod, worship demigods, and everything. A family of Krishna, so we should be careful to not offend them. Mm.
So there were 11 more incarnations of Rudra, which were given birth by
Yeah,
Brahma.
there are 11 Rudras. It's very
11 Rudras.
different Rudras are in charge of different kinds of patients like that. So there are 11 Rudras. It's like the
11
same person but expanded, so that
expanded. Mm.
they can take care of so many other deities. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
jai,
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
jai.
So tomorrow we'll study more about the conversation between Rudradev and and Brahma. Mahadev and Brahma. I love Mahadev actually. Rudra. Rudra is somebody who cries loudly. When he was born, he was crying loudly. What do you want me to do? What's my name? Where do you want me to live? Maharudra. And Rudradev is the, where all residences Brahma gave. Rudradev is also the Manobhimani Devata. Shankar. Actually, it's very difficult to understand Shiva Tattva. And Guru Tattva and Shiva Tattva is very difficult to understand. Okay, tomorrow we'll continue that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.